Minister of Agriculture based in Swift Current, and I'll be chairing this morning's event. CEUs are being offered for CCAs on this webinar. In order to get credit, you must attend the entire live event. There will be a QR code at the end of the presentation to collect credit. If you have missed the code and have attended live, please email us afterwards and we can work with you to get credit. Before we start with the formal presentation, I have a few items to share. Our Crops Extension Specialist team puts out this webinar every year. We work out of 10 offices across the province, and each office contains a wide variety of specialists that can help you with any agriculture questions. To connect with our specialist, please call your local regional office or the Agriculture Knowledge Center at the number provided. There are 8 agrogram sites located throughout the province that are dedicated to bringing the industry's Saskatchewan-specific information and demonstrations on new and existing agriculture practices. If you're interested in learning more, please follow the QR code. That is on the screen right there. If you've ever heard the words on the radio, Saskatchewan is 98% completed harvest this week, then you've likely heard of the crop report. My colleagues in the Moose Jaw office and across the province write the crop report each week during the growing season based on data collected from crop reporters across the province. I'd like to thank all of our current crop reporters for helping us achieve this comprehensive report. And I'd also like to invite everyone to be a new crop reporter and use the QR code or give us a shout. And I also wanted to remind you that Crop Diagnostics School is happening this summer in Swift Current, July 29th and 30th. And myself and Wheatland Conservation Area would like to invite everyone to come down and check out the school. Each day is separate and they're identical. We also wanted to talk about another webinar series that you might be interested in. This series is brought to you by our range management specialist and our agro-environmental specialist. So there's a few different ones on different topics there. And you can visit the Saskatchewan Agriculture Events calendar on our website to register. We have a few housekeeping notes to keep in mind during the webinar. If anyone has any questions during any of the presentations, you may type them in the question box on the top right-hand side of your control panel. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible. Your question will remain anonymous and will only be sent to me. During the presentation, you will be muted so that we can assure there is no feedback that will interfere with the audio. Now, let's get started. Dr. James Tansey is the provincial entomologist with the Ministry of Agriculture since January 2018. Prior to this, he worked as a research scientist with ALK in Post Falls, Idaho, investigating and optimizing industrial production and allergen expression in host dust mites. He came to Idaho from a postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Florida, where he investigated control of Asian citrus psyllids and other citrus pests. His doctoral research and first postdoc focused on canola entomology in the Doddsdale Lab at the University of Alberta, primarily host plant resistance to some major insect pests of canola in novel germplasm. His master's degree examined insect-plant interactions and an important leafy spurge biological control agent. We'll get started whenever you're ready, James.
James, you're just on mute still.
Thanks. I've been talking for 30 seconds. Yeah, anyway, thanks everyone for joining us. Excellent way to get started. So thanks, Shannon, for the introduction. So, pardon me. Let's see if we can get this thing to change slides. There we go. Okay, Richardson Ground Squirrel. We'll talk about life history a little bit here. I'm just going to turn my camera off, so we can actually just focus on the presentation. Spring emergence is correlated with warming surface temperature and warming surface and air temperatures. It is in fact driven by day length. So this is the primary factor regulating their emergence period, and this is going to vary at different latitudes, of course, with different day lengths. But yeah, it is tied intimately to day length. So this is why you'll see, especially male gophers, start to come out of their burrows, at minus 25 and scurry across the top of snowdrifts in what seems like pretty inhospitable conditions. Yeah, they're a slave to day length. The males are going to appear 2 weeks before females, and they're going to undergo what's called testicular recrudescence, and the rebuilding of fat reserves. So the rebuilding of fat reserves is directly associated with consumption of food. So they're going to be out actively foraging, actively feeding on whatever they can find. So testicular recrudescence. Recrudescence is a bit of a funny word. It literally means the return of something horrible. So testicular recrudescence, take that where you like. But no, in the spring they quite literally grow a pair. So their testes atrophy over the winter. No sense maintaining something you're not using, and they blossom again in the spring. So that's going to raise their testosterone levels, and they're going to engage in some pretty aggressive activity, including fighting. And some have characterized this as Richardson's Ground Squirrel UFC, or RGS UFC, for those who like acronyms. Females are going to come up a couple of weeks later, and they're going to terminate their torpor the day before they appear. So torpor is the state that they spend winter in, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in an upcoming slide. If I can get it to advance. Okay, there we go. So females, yeah. So part of the reason, or the big part of the reason for male fighting in the spring, and how enthusiastic they can be at fighting. If you have a little bit of time and a patio chair, then sit down on your driveway or a road and watch the fights. They are pretty brutal, and reason being is they are trying to gain access to mates. So females are receptive for 4 hours per year, full stop. So they got one afternoon where they are receptive to the advances of males. Males can mate with as many as 10 females. Females can mate with 6 to 8 males. So yeah, it's a bit of a gopher party for about 4 hours one afternoon. Assuming successful mating, and if she misses the boat and there are no males in that area, she is not receptive until the next year. If the males miss the boat, again, they're out of luck till next year. So 1 litter per year. We do get calls occasionally about multiple litters. I have yet to see confirmation of that. So 1 litter per year, typically 5 per 8, although litters can be as large as 10 to 12 in extreme cases. And I have seen litters of 10 on my own place. Gestation lasts 23 days, and lactation about 5 weeks. They're going to be weaned shortly before emergence. So if you see a baby gopher on the surface, although it is dumb as a stick, it is relatively independent. It still relies on mom for training and guidance, but in a pinch, it can get by on its own. So the young are going to stay within the mother's territory. They're going to claim part of it, at least in the short term, as they mature. Gophers, however, or Richardson's ground squirrel, are territorial, and they're going to drive out especially young males initially, and they'll drive them a pretty long distance from their colonies. They are not popular. They want to prevent inbreeding. So gopher colonies are based on female kin groups. So you're going to get grandma gopher daughters and female progeny. Typically, the males are going to be driven out at least to the peripheries of those colonies. Each individual gopher is going to occupy a spot that's about 30 feet across. So imagine a 30-foot diameter circle, and they're not great at sharing. So they will actively fight over those sites. So yeah, once again, males are going to be driven out from the colony. So if you're seeing dead gophers on the road, chances are that is a male, probably a young male that's been driven away. So March 15th to April 30th is the best time to manage Richardson's ground squirrel. I'm of the mind more recently that to wait until the entire population is up, and you get the most efficiency for your effort. So the males are going to come up first, once again, 2 weeks before the females. The fighting is going to be ongoing, and once the females come up, you'll see obviously an increase in population. Then is the time to act. And that is typically going to occur in April. So keep an eye out for that. Some earlier recommendations indicated, control as early as February. I don't know if that's the most effective way to do that. There's also some evidence that once senescence occurs in grasses, so that is, grasses like bromes and some of the annual grasses begin to seed out and senesce, that can actually be a good time for control as well, with a great deal of activity from the Richardson's Ground Squirrel on collecting seeds. So you can see here in orange, these are the activity of the different sexes and different maturities of Richardson's Ground Squirrel over the course of the year. Many people are surprised that they're only active about 100 days per year. And you can see that there's overlap between the adult males, adult females, juvenile males, and juvenile females. So come October, November, if you're still seeing activity, those are going to be juvenile males. And they're just trying to put on the pounds for overwintering. You don't need many males to contribute to the next generation. So the ones you want to target are those reproductive females in the spring. And you want to get them before the babies come up. So babies are going to start coming up first or second week of May. Can be a little bit later in some years, particularly very cold years with limited resources. But typically it's going to be around that time. You definitely want to get them before the babies come up, because if you've got 5 to 8 babies coming up, you're looking at least a quintupling in population and a quintupling in potential damage. So some different control strategies. I've got cultural and biological lumped together here because a lot of the biological control agents are generalist predators. So that is badgers, and you can see when here, this is a short-tailed weasel that was photographed on my place, actually stealing babies away from nursing mothers and causing quite a commotion in the colony, and I believe that's a sharp-finned hawk there. But a number of different raptor species will prey on badgers, as well a number of different generalist predators, including, as I mentioned before, badgers, a couple of snake species, coyotes, foxes, raptors, as mentioned, weasels, and others that will happily take advantage of Richardson's ground squirrel population. Shooting, trapping, and drowning can also be a strategy, although shooting is a more effective and labor effective means of limiting populations. Eradication with these are very difficult. It's important to note that badgers can actually eradicate local populations. I realize they can cause a lot of damage, and arguably more damage than the gophers as far as equipment goes. But if you're a canola grower, you may want to welcome the badgers there. They can actually really do a number on local gopher populations. So chemical control is also appropriate, and there are a number of products registered currently for Richardson's ground squirrel control. These include the products with the active chlorofascinone and difascinone. Both of these are anticoagulants, so that is, they mess with the clotting function in the body. So they result in internal bleeding and some external bleeding, and are multiple feeding toxins and can take a while to kill. Aluminum phosphide is a restricted product, and you need special licensure to apply it. It is a fumigant. So the tablets are introduced to a burrow. It reacts with soil moisture and atmospheric moisture and releases phosphine gas. So can be very hazardous to work with. So you need special training and licensure to use it, and a fumigation plan. We'll talk about some of these in a little more detail later. Zinc phosphide. There are a couple of products available as treated oat baits. There are also some pellet formulations. This works much like aluminum phosphide, where it's a phosphide salt, and you release you hydrolyze the molecule that releases the phosphine gas. In the case of zinc phosphide, it needs a weak acidic environment, and also white mustard powder and soap. So this is basically the soap you would find in dishwasher solutions, or even personal grooming shampoos. White mustard seed powder, and we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. So is also toxic, and this is pumped into the holes and can be efficacious. I can't comment on cost though because you actually need to get a crew to come in. So the next slide, integrated pest management. So all of these strategies should be grouped together or considered on a case-by-case, site-by-site manner in an integrated management. So the term integrated pest management was brought into the public space in the 1970s in the United States. So it was popularized by the USDA in the United States as a means to reduce the reliance on chemical control, and there was considerable over reliance on chemical control in the 1960s and 1970s. And as a means to reduce this, some creative thinkers came up with this integrated pest management idea. One of the first to actually say it publicly was Richard Nixon. So there's your little historical context. So combined, these methods can have a synergistic effect on control. So that is not just 1 + 1 = 2, 1 + 1 can equal 3 in some cases if these are combined efficaciously. So looking at some biological control agents, and as I mentioned before, lumping cultural and biological control together, because the cultural aspect of it requires some tolerance of natural enemies of Richardson's ground squirrel, and in some cases even promotion of them. And we'll talk a little bit about promotion of their natural enemies. This is the American kestrel. It's a little falcon. You'll see this hovering in the yard occasionally, happily munching on any small rodents or songbirds that it can find. So it is a generalist. All of these predators are. Excuse me. Pardon me, I have a bit of a frog in my throat this morning. So they will happily munch on baby gophers, but they're not going to eradicate a population. They're not capable of taking down the adults. You can promote their nesting in a region with the construction of a bird box. These are, as I recall, on the SARM website and in a CPN article, and you can contact me directly if you want the plans for these. There are plans aplenty on the internet, though, if you want to construct bird boxes for kestrels. The American barn owl is a relatively infrequent nester in Saskatchewan, but with a warming climate, it is moving its nesting territories further north. Again, it is a generalist predator. It will hunt in the day, and so gophers are on the menu, or Richardson's ground squirrel is on the menu. You can promote their nesting by constructing bird boxes if you've confirmed that they are in the region and want to promote their activity in the region. It's basically a wooden box with a larger hole. And these will be fixed to a tree. Northern harriers are another generalist raptoral species. These ones are relatively larger, 3-foot wingspan, and you'll see these animals hovering, flying over, just over the soil surface. They will actually run down prey on the ground, hopping along. It's a little bit comical, I suppose, unless you're the prey item, then probably not so comical, but can be very effective reducers of Richardson's ground squirrel populations as well. And finally, the ferruginous hawk. This is a very large hawk, eagle-sized, and it relies almost exclusively on Richard ground squirrel to fledge its chicks. So it is a very effective predator of Richardson's ground squirrel, but it is also a generalist, but it is a relative specialist on Richardson's ground squirrel, so it can be very efficacious. Ferruginous for that rust-colored pattern on its back. There are dark and light color morphs, though, but that rust color is a real clear indicator, as is the very large size. And you'll see these in the southwest primarily. So you can construct raptor nesting platforms, basically a pole with a platform on it. And again, the plans for these are readily available. Installation is relatively easy if you've got some friends. And I don't want to compare, but I think my platform might be a little taller than their platform, by a little. But anyway, so this platform I constructed for about $200. So the materials are easily available at any hardware store, and installation is relatively simple. And in the CPN article, we have instructions for construction and installation. So talking about some of the chemistry specifically, this is zinc phosphide and what it looks like in its purified form. This is used for rats, mice, and burrowing rodents. It's been around a long time. So it was first synthesized in the 1700s, first used as a rodenticide in 1911 in Italy, and first registered in Canada in 1961. So it's got a long history. So it's not a new product. It is stable up until 40 degrees Celsius, and this can be part of the rub for this one. If you've got zinc phosphide baits in the back of your truck and it's a hot day, the under that canopy can reach 50 degrees Celsius pretty quickly, and you could get breakdown of these poisons, of zinc phosphide poisons. Bait life in wet soils is 20 days, and I would say that's probably at maximum. If you've got acidic soils like occur in many areas, then you can see breakdown associated with this product as well. So there can be some factors, environmental and storage, that can significantly impact the efficacy of this product. So in weak acids, like you would normally see in the animal gut, it's going to break down, hydrolyze to release phosphine gas, and that's really what's going to pack the punch. So zinc phosphide, toxic on its own, but the real punch comes from the release of that phosphine gas. However, the release of that phosphine gas means it's also going to outgas from a carcass that's been killed, meaning that the residues will be relatively low in a carcass, in relatively, stark opposition to some of the other products that could be used, and represent a lower hazard to scavengers and predators. I'll never say no hazard or no residue, but greatly reduced. Phosphine gas causes cell necrosis in the heart, brain, kidneys, and liver, and may inactivate acetylcholinesterase. So it breaks down vital tissues and can act as a neurotoxin as well, so resulting in paralysis and twitching. Kills quickly as well. Aluminum phosphide also kills quickly, and as I mentioned before, this is a restricted use product. This hydrolyzes to release phosphine gas under neutral conditions, so a reaction with almost any water, and highly reactive. It will actually react with atmospheric water as well. So yeah, really exercise caution when using this. It's used primarily to fumigate bins, so as a stored products pest fumigation. So you do need a fumigation plan for its use, and the plan must be written prior to the actual treatment. I did mention a couple of the anticoagulants that are readily available, and these, of course, include chlorofascinone and difascinone. Both inhibit clotting protein synthesis by preventing vitamin K1 recycling. So that is really essential for clotting. Multiple feedings are required, and so it can take 7 to 10 days to kill. The animals can achieve what's called a moribund status, so they're really weak and can be bleeding from the eyes and from other orifices, and present a tasty treat for potential predators. The toxin tends to get located in the liver of the animal, so it isn't guaranteed that a secondary feeding by a scavenger or predator is going to result in poisoning, but the possibility exists. So both chlorofascinone and difascinone have been registered in Canada for some time. Products for chlorofascinone, one of the primaries is Rosol. One of the primaries for difascinone is Ramic Green. I also mentioned Rocon. This is white mustard seed powder and a soap. The foam is actually pumped into burrowing rodent burrows, so you need to be cognizant of potential species at risk that are occupying those burrows. We'll talk about those in one of the last slides. Pardon me. These are registered. This product is registered for rats and Richardson Ground Squirrel. It is a suffocant and a significant irritant. Also causes irreversible eye damage. So, for I guess a perspective of what this feels like, white mustard seed powder breaks down into what's called the mustard oil bomb, and that's what this looks like. So the mustard oil bomb is the breakdown of glucosinolates. In this case, we've got Synagrin. So Synagrin is one of the primary glucosinolates. There are actually 32 plus glucosinolates described from different Brassicaceae. Synagrin is one of the primaries. So that's going to break off, and you see that sugar group on the left. That myrosinase enzyme is going to cleave that, cut the sugar off, and release the aglycone. So under different pH conditions, that's going to reconform. So the molecule is going to twist and turn and find its way into different conformations. One of the most common ones is allyl isothiocyanate, and I mentioned perspective, so I'm sure there's a lot of wasabi or horseradish fans in the group. So that sensation you get, the zing, that's allyl isothiocyanate from the breakdown of glucosinolates, and there is some toxicity associated with it, but dose makes the poison. So don't be concerned about the dose that you're getting from a nice meal with horseradish. In high concentrations, however, imagine taking that horseradish sensation, multiplying it by 100, and introducing it to your eyes and lungs. So that's that's what the gopher is experiencing. So strychnine. We'll talk in a little bit of detail about strychnine. Of course, strychnine is no longer registered. March 2023 was the last permitted use for it. So if you have stores of it, it is not permitted for use currently. Strychnine is a bitter, intensely bitter, very, very toxic indole alkaloid. So it is a plant defense compound. It evolved in coevolution primarily with insects, but also with plant pathogens as a way for this plant, the venom orange, to defend itself from feeding. So the seeds are extremely toxic. The bark is extremely toxic. But the fruit is actually edible. Do you want to be taking that kind of chance? Probably not. It is native to India and other regions in Southeast Asia. It grows wild there, and it is harvested from wild populations. It's also harvested from commercial production. So there are venom orange orchards there that are harvested commercially and processed for strychnine. So it could be argued strychnine is a natural product. It's organic. So however, wickedly toxic, of course. Can be inhaled, absorbed through the eyes or mouth, or of course consumed orally. Can all result in the toxic effects. It is an extremely potent and low specificity antagonist of acetylcholine receptors and glycine. So this causes nerves to fire, and they don't get any release from it. So the acetylcholine esterase would normally clear that channel, but they just keep on firing. So symptoms include spastic muscle contraction and death by respiratory arrest. And that includes all vertebrates. So broadly toxic to all life forms. There are some insects that can sequester strychnine and store it in their fat body, which is the organ in insects that's a lot like a liver. But that basically makes those insects little flying poison bombs. So strychnine, a recent history. I did mention before the deregistration decision and the last use in March 2023. That decision came down in 2020. It was a phase-out period, so manufacture could continue to 2021, sales to 22, and use till 2023. Saskatchewan and Alberta Ministries of Agriculture submitted letters of objection to the final decision, and we were among 32 other submitters of letters of objection, including Canadian Cattlemen's Association and some other stakeholder groups. Strychnine manufacturer also experienced some supply chain issues, and we petitioned PMRA to allow a delay in the phase-out period so that the manufacturer could address some of these supply chain issues and address availability during the phase-out. We were denied in both cases. So demand for strychnine has continued with perceived increases in Richardson Ground Squirrel populations, and so to try to address this, we've collaborated with Alberta and submitted a joint emergency use registration application for strychnine. We're anticipating the PMRA's decision by the end of January, and so kind of waiting with bated breath as to whether they give us a yay or a nay. There are some difficult hurdles to clear as far as registration for this, including environmental and human safety. A lot of the reasons he was deregistered in the first place. We've introduced some caveats to the registration, and using it will be more onerous if it does return. It will not be as easy to access or as easy to use as previous, but we may see a return of it. It's impossible to say what the odds of it coming back are. Just to say 50-50, sure. So the ministry is also working on a multi-pronged Richardson Ground Squirrel strategy to guide management and working on a plan for stewardship in the case that it is reinstated. This is an emergency use registration, so this would be a 1-year registration subject to renewal. So for those of you not aware, SARM administers the Saskatchewan Gopher Control Program. It is funded under the Canadian Sustainable Canadian Agricultural Partnership, or SCAP, again, administered by SARM, and this is a rebate program for accepted control practices. So up to 50% for registered, and registered is the important word there, gopher control products. So check out the PMRA website. There is a database of registered products, or look at the SARM website. There's a comprehensive list of the products that are permitted. Non-chemical means are also permitted to be submitted for rebate, and these include Raptor platforms and nest boxes, and these are also eligible for a 50% to a maximum of 125. So these are offered to rural municipalities, First Nations, through RMs and First Nations, and to other stakeholders. So that is individual landholders and other stakeholders. So we did look with the impending deregistration. We looked at the efficacy of alternatives in 2022 and 2023 in collaboration with Alberta's Ministry of Alberta Agriculture. So we looked at comparative efficacy and non-target mortality for strychnine, zinc phosphide, couple of products there. We didn't look at any of the pellet products, just a couple of treated oat baits. We looked at a couple of anticoagulants and 2 formulations there, chlorofacinone, Rosal RTU, and difacinone, Ramic Green. And just a quick look at some of the results. So we got good knockdown with all of these products. So 70% is about that sweet spot where you can say you've got good efficacy. You can see there was some pretty significant variability in some of these, and in this case, strychnine wound up to be numerically best, but was still statistically similar to the others. But pretty good knockdown with all of these. These were the results from Saskatchewan in 2023, and once again, you can see some pretty good variability even with strychnine with the results, and some knockdown with the other products. What happened in this case, I suspect, is the babies got counted. So the babies emerged after the poison went down, were not affected by the poison. So this is why you see an increase in the control group, and you also see an increase in the Rosal RTU group. So in that case, mom wasn't poisoned because she was nursing, and the babies came up, got to count the babies. So we actually saw a decrease in population overall, even though the babies had come up at that point. So historically, this is from 2001, or the results as of 2001, when strychnine was still registered. So strychnine, zinc phosphide, and the anticoagulants, that full suite that we just looked at, were all registered. Intensive poisoning, but poor population control from 91 to 2001. Still increasing Richardson's ground squirrel populations, and a quote from a publication from 2009, a general consensus that suite of chemical control was just not doing the job. Weather is really the primary driver, and its impact on some of the other factors that are controlling Richardson's ground squirrel, primarily disease. That's really the driver for Richardson's ground squirrel control. You can get local population control, but overall we still saw an increase from 91 to 2001, despite strychnine being registered. So looking at zinc phosphide efficacy, and we talked about a little bit some of the issues with zinc phosphide efficacy and maybe some of the problems that people have been having with some of these products. So 97% reduction in gopher populations is possible with pre-baiting. So that is, you take an untreated bait a week before you put your poison down, and you spread the bait around, just small handfuls around the burrow entrances. That gets them used to feeding on seeds at a time of year where they might not otherwise, where they're looking for green. You also want to do this before green up, because once that green comes up, it's difficult to get them to take the bait. So timing is crucial, so that that green up can have a really profound impact. And here you can see 30% reduction after green up. Once again, 96% reduction with pre-baiting, 62 without. And so that was an application before green up, 85 with pre-baiting, 95 July and August. So that was that late season application I was talking about with pre-baiting, 60% reduction May to June. So again, that green up was beginning to occur, and that had an impact as well. So some factors can have an impact. Environmental and storage factors, as I mentioned before, can also have an impact on zinc phosphide. The formulation can have an impact. The coated oat baits are generally better than the pellets. Acidic soils can contribute to the breakdown. As I mentioned before, it needs a weak acidic environment, and of course Saskatchewan has no shortage of acidic soils. So if you've got decent soil moisture and acidic soils, you could see pretty rapid breakdown of this product and poor efficacy. Heat, as I mentioned, can contribute to the breakdown. So you're getting past 40 degrees Celsius in storage conditions, you could see the breakdown of that. And so if you open up that bag, and so it comes in a 50-pound bag, very dusty. Wear mask, wear goggles, absolutely. You do not want to be inhaling this material or get it in your eyes. So the breakdown, if you open up that bag and you're not smelling anything, there should be a garlic odor. If you're not smelling anything when you open up that bag, it's probably lost its punch because of something that happened in storage or transport. So be aware of that. Bait shyness can also occur. I'd ask for a show of hands on anyone who had an enthusiastic experience with tequila when they were in high school. So imagine that you have a sublethal encounter with a toxin, let's say tequila, you're probably not going to go have tequila the next weekend, and that's really what they're going through. So if they have a sublethal encounter with zinc phosphide, that garlic flavor is going to be a really big cue for them to stay away from that, and you'll see some pretty profound bait shyness if they do survive that first round. It is, however, typically a one feeding poison if everything has been sustained with its toxicity. This is looking at chlorphacinone. So this is, and I apologize for the size of the text. We'll go through this quickly. So this is Rosol. You can see some pretty good variation in some of the efficacy for this one, but 100% efficacy is possible as well. This is with spring applications. Again, spring application up to 95% reduction. This was placed in burrow openings with canary seed. So there's some evidence that the different grain can have an impact. Most of these are treated oat baits, and they seem to like oat just fine. Really, what I'm looking at here is the top of the list versus the bottom of the list. So you can see the bottom of the list there with alfalfa fields with chlorphacinone treated oats placed in burrow openings in the summer. So summer is a little bit late as well, but even in the spring, lower efficacy. What was suspected of happening there was exposure to vitamin K. So alfalfa is rich in vitamin K, and the ingestion of that vitamin K allowed the gophers to actually take on the antidote for these anticoagulants. The antidote for these anticoagulants, as it happens, is vitamin K. The antidote, the anticoagulants mess with vitamin K recycling. So introducing vitamin K to the diet has the potential to reduce efficacy. This comes with a bit of a caveat, though, a bit of an asterisk. We'll talk about this right now. So once again, the suspected effects of vitamin K, and just another indication of good efficacy with Rosol for Richardson's Ground Squirrel based on that first citation there. This was a study. This is voles. Of course, voles are not Richardson's Ground Squirrel, but their colonic systems are very similar. And in the case of voles, dietary vitamin K did not negate the effects of chlorphacinone. So it remains a bit of an open question, the impact of dietary effect of vitamin K, but there is some evidence to support that. However, application before green up. There is also some evidence of resistance in another ground squirrel species. Of course, resistance to warfarin, which has the same mode of action as chlorphacinone and diphacinone, is widely reported in rat populations, and this usually has to do with upregulation of vitamin K recycling. So they ramp up that particular physiological chain to compensate for the toxin. So decreased efficacy was documented in California ground squirrel. However, what was determined was that this was not associated with rodenticide metabolism. They pinned it on genetic resistance writ large without really clearly defining what that means, and potential behavioral factors. So behavioral issues like bait shyness, as described for zinc phosphide, have been described. So there could be issues with, because it is a multiple feeding mode of action, with bait shyness associated with that one. This is some results for strychnine, and just to illustrate that strychnine is maybe not the panacea or the cure-all that it's been touted to be. Efficacy can be highly variable, and in this case, these were the top of them, the 38% efficacy. This is with old strychnine, so it doesn't store well for long periods. It doesn't do well with freezing, and you can really lose efficacy in an awful hurry if it's frozen or stored for a long period of time. So there's really no advantage to keeping it in the shed, assuming it comes back. So new growth. The second one you can see, this is newly mixed and spring treated, and good efficacy there, up to 95% efficacy. And just looking down, you can see that there is some variability. You got the same sort of environmental and timing conditions, less on the environmental, more on the timing conditions. I apologize. I guess environmental conditions as they pertain to spring green up. So you got to get it down early is really the take home here before green up, where you can get diversion of the animals towards those towards the green growth rather than towards the bait. There is also possible for resistance to strychnine, and it's been documented in Saskatchewan populations. So these were tissues collected from strychnine-exposed populations compared to naive populations, so that is populations that hadn't been exposed to strychnine. The exposed have higher cytochrome P450 monooxygenase activity in their liver. So cytochrome P450s, or just P450s if you like, are detoxification enzymes. So we got them, gophers have them, fish have them, insects have them, bacteria have them. There's a whole suite of different types of P450s, but they're really common in different living organisms. Different systems. So you'll see upregulation in response to challenges from toxins. This is in fact how we get around eating a lot of the toxins that you would find in plants. So no such thing as a non-toxic plant. We can consume a large suite of different plants because of our P450s. Anyway, or in part because of our P450s. So what they found, so upregulation of these P450s in strychnine-exposed gophers. They also saw greater differences, or differences greater for females. So the upregulation was greater for females. So a possible mechanism of resistance to strychnine already built into Saskatchewan populations. So going through the label instructions, what we're finding, particularly with some of the alternatives, is that in some cases label instructions are not being followed, and these present, hazards to non-targets and can have an impact on efficacy. So in the case of Rosol, you can use bait stations as pictured here. Only put 0.5 kilogram in there. And there was one case of a grower filling that whole top tube up in the last couple of years and poisoning deer in the area because it was spilling out the ends. So really, you want access for the gophers to get in there, but you don't want the stuff spilling out the ends. You don't want to expose non-targets. So gophers love tubes; they will happily find their way in there. So in holes, or using bait stations, so small amount in the hole, 7 to 4 grams, which seems odd. So 140 to 280 grains. So basically a large heaping tablespoon into a burrow. You don't need any more than that. I've seen growers dumping kilograms of bait into holes. You just don't need it. It is such overkill. It's a waste of money and increases the risk to non-targets. So revisit after 48 hours, and this is the label. These are the label instructions. So this is the law. If you use Rosol, you're legally obliged to do this. So after 48 hours, replace the bait that's been removed or consumed. Remove and bury any squirrel carcasses to remove the hazards to non-targets. In the case of bait stations, count the population over 48 hours. This will tell you how many bait stations to put down. You put down one bait station per 50 grams. So that's what a bait station will look like. A bait station can also look like a box with a hole in it. You just want to restrict access to Richardson's Ground Squirrel, so 3-inch hole in a wooden box works just fine. 500 grams per bait station, check daily, uninterrupted supply for 3 weeks or until the feeding stops. So these are pretty labor intensive, maintenance intensive methods to control. I mean the strychnine instructions were comparable, but unfortunately I don't know that the instructions were necessarily being followed all the time. So once again, removing bury carcasses. If you're doing it using Rosol or in a residential or public space or any place that's going to be exposed to pets or livestock, you're required to use a tier 1 bait station. So that is a high strength material resistant to children. You don't want kids getting in there, obvious non-targets and weakening by the elements. There are a number that are commercially available. So Tomcat's a good producer of tier 1 bait stations for gophers. I think they run about $30 a piece. So yeah, and once again, you're limiting access. The internal structure prevents bait from being shaken loose, so really reduces that the prospects of that bait getting out. You're required to put an access panel that fastens securely and locks, and a product name or a sign with a product name, active ingredient, and the registration number, and a warning, poison, and the skull and crossbones symbol. So once again, required by law. So burrow oat bait, these are the label instructions for that. Zinc phosphide treated oat bait. Once again, these work better than the pellets. Ensure there is no evidence of species at risk activity or presence in burrows. Once again, this is on the label. This is the law. Pre-baiting, as I mentioned before, 15 grams of untreated grain, near the hole, 7 days prior to application of the baits. Get them used to eating seeds, and then apply 15 grams directly to holes. So that's again, small handful. Apply directly to holes. Get it as deep in that hole as you can. If you're going to use a bait station, it is permitted. Have that relatively close to the hole, about a foot away from the hole or less. 15 grams of bait in there, and once again, the signage requirement that you saw with Rosol is applicable there. You can also use tier 1 bait stations, and you're obliged to use them if in residential or public spaces or in areas exposed to pets or livestock. You don't want livestock eating this. Although dose makes the poison, livestock are still subject to poisoning from this. It does take a fair bit. As I mentioned, dose does make the poison, but there have been accounts of horses killed in the past couple of years with zinc phosphide. So use caution. I did mention species at risk, and here are some of the primaries that you should be watching out for. Burrowing owl and swift fox are considered endangered, and so yeah, you don't want to be wiping these out. Swift fox, the easiest way to tell that apart from red fox is look at the face and the tip of the tail. Yeah, they're swift, so yeah, they're pretty quick. They're not a very large fox, but neither is red fox really. Look at the tip of the tail, black. Red fox has a white tip of the tail. So even the gray color morph of red fox has a white tip of the tail, and those black markings underneath the eye is a pretty clear indication of swift fox. Bull snake can be an important predator of Richardson's ground squirrel, though it's not going to reduce populations dramatically. So typical for snakes, they're gonna have a meal, and then they're gonna digest that meal for 2 to 3 weeks. So yeah, don't look for rapid knockdown with bull snakes. Bull snakes can be large, though. I mean, 6-7 feet long. So they will happily consume adult ground squirrels. Tiger salamanders, I mentioned, are just co-occupants of burrows. These are also on the COSEWIC list as a species of special concern. So keep an eye out for evidence of those especially before you use a fumigant. And prairie rattlesnakes, similarly, they will use gopher burrows, and be cognizant of those. They'll also happily munch on gophers as well. Oh, I did mention before ferruginous hawk, but we talked about some of that. Talked about that in a previous slide. So some coming challenges that we're expecting. So there is what's called a cyclical review. So when a product is registered, PMRA looks at it again in 15 years, and that's written in stone, really. They are really overworked right now with over 200 actives registered about 15 years ago. So yeah, they've really got their hands full. But we are looking forward to the rodenticide cluster. So all the rodenticides, or this group at any rate, being subject to review in 2026, 2027. This includes the first generation anticoagulants like warfarin, which is still used for rats, and chlorphacinone, Rosol, and Ramic for diphacinone. Also includes some rat control products. These are the second generation of anticoagulants, and some with mitochondrial activity like zinc phosphide and bromethalin, which is for rats again. We're nervously anticipating the beginning of this review process. And with that, I will take any questions. Oh, I wanted to indicate too. This is the QR code for the Richardson Ground Squirrel survey. Please point your phone in that. A little drop-down menu will show up. It takes about 5 minutes to complete, and really gives us a good estimate of local pressures, local control strategies, your satisfaction with local control strategies, including biological, cultural, and the registered chemical control. And there is a comment section as well. Please don't bring strychnine back. We're working on it. Working hard on that. So no need to put that in the comment section. Please and thank you. But all of the comments welcome, particularly those associated with extreme weather events and those that may have had an impact on gopher populations to help us better understand what's going on with these populations. And to that, I'll address some questions.
Okay, thank you very much for that great presentation, James. As a reminder, if you have any questions today, please enter them into the chat box at the top of the control panel. I'll also put up the QR code just for a moment.
Because they are solitary. I realize there are cases where they can be, particularly if they're getting into gardens or so forth, and you need to control them. But the control is almost identical to what you would see with Richardson's ground squirrel, just less intense.
Okay, thanks, James.
That took a long time to get to, didn't it? Sorry.
That's okay. It's good to know. Okay. Second question is, what is the benefit or rationale for waiting until all males and females are active in the spring before starting control?
You just broader target. Yeah, you got more that you can affect. If you start control when the males are up, once again, it doesn't take very many males to contribute to the population. So you put all your eggs into early control, there's a chance that you're going to skew your control towards males. And once again, each male can mate with 10 females. Doesn't take a lot of males to contribute to the next generation. So you want to get it when those reproductive females are active. So just waiting a little bit can be really efficacious. I realize it's a balancing act, because oftentimes, the snow goes and it greens up the next day, or you'll even see green growth popping up through the snow. So yeah, it really is case by case. So look at your local activity. If you're estimating that you got a lot of activity, you may want to consider controlling by seeking out those burrows even with snow on the ground, and firing that bait down the hole, or using a bait station.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, do you know why there are no second generation anticoagulants currently registered for Richardson Ground Squirrel control?
It has to do with non-target poisoning primarily. There's actually there are some advantages to them. They are one-feeding toxins. They kill relatively quicker than the first generation anticoagulants, but because of issues with non-target mortality, there's actually some restrictions that are being introduced provincially. Not in Saskatchewan, but British Columbia has introduced some restrictions. So it could be argued some of the restrictions are in name only, but there are some new restrictions to use for second generation for rat control in British Columbia. And I suspect they will probably elicit some attention as part of this review process as well. I don't foresee them being introduced for Richardson's ground squirrel control, though.
Okay, thanks, James. Next question is, how effective are weasels at controlling Richardson ground squirrel, and is there a way to attract them to a site?
Excellent question. I would think moderately. The critters that are actually quite good at limiting Richardson ground squirrel population are badgers, and I'll come back to badgers in a moment. But for weasels, yeah, so we got three weasel species in the province. The one that happened to be around my place, or the ones that happened to be around my place, and denning, was short-tailed weasel, some call them stouts or stoat. Yeah, sorry, pardon me. That's the English term. Anyway, yeah, short-tailed weasel. Uh, um, how much impact did this one in particular have on the population? Moderate. I think it's in the, to get its pups through. I think it stole maybe a dozen babies, and so out of a relatively large population, the impact was there. I guess if you ask the gophers, the impact was pretty significant. But all of these together can contribute to reducing that population at a stable equilibrium point. The ones that will actually can actually result in local eradication are badgers. They can actually hunt themselves out of food. And one curious thing about badgers that I just found out about a year and a half ago, uh, they will hunt with coyotes. So an individual badger and an individual coyote will walk down the trail together, talking about gophers, I imagine, and coordinate their hunting. So the coyote drives the gopher into the hole. Of course, the badger drives the gopher out of the hole, and this increases both hunting efficiencies by about a third. So by about 30%. And I've seen game camera footage and still photography of them walking down the trail together. It's quite something.
Yeah, that's interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, I'll have to. I can't remember whose presentation that was. I'll definitely have to go looking and send some contacts her way as well.
Okay, next question. Are predator birds territorial? And if so, how big is that territory? So when constructing predator bird platforms or boxes, is there a recommended distance between them, or should there be multiple platforms per quarter to improve control?
Yeah, I think Ministry of Environment has actually done some work on this, and I think as I recall, their guidance is a Raptor platform about every 500 meters, and you don't want to get any closer than about 200 meters to it. I mean, you could disturb them and discourage them from using it. But yeah, raptor birds can be fiercely territorial and actually prey on each other. So in the case of the raptor platform, the one that I had pictured, that I installed on my place, it has yet to be occupied. After 2 years, occasionally ravens will sit on it. And think about a Venn diagram. So you got a circle in the middle, which is where the raptor platform lives. And you got a great horned owl whose territory is right here, and you got a northern harrier whose territory is right here, and a red-tailed hawk whose territory is right here. So all of their territories overlap on the raptor platform, so nobody has the courage to take it over. And of course, great horned owls will actually happily munch on hawk chicks. So yeah, it can be problematic for the hawk. So as it stands, unless somebody leaves, I don't imagine my platform's going to be occupied unless it's by ravens. So yeah, fiercely territorial, and with that guidance on space. I can look into more detail. That's my recollection is about that 500 meters.
Okay, thank you. Lots of things going on there. Um,
Yeah, I got a
next
busy
one.
place. Yeah.
Next question is, I have some rosal that has been stored in my heated shop for about 3 years. Will it still be effective?
Yeah, it's always best to use fresh bait. I haven't seen anything about storage stability for chlorphacinone. So I'm just going to respond with an I don't know in this case. Yeah, I think fresh product is always good. I realize, yeah, money is money, and when it's $200 a bucket, I think then that is a consideration. But yeah, I'm sorry, I just don't know.
Okay, thank you. Is there a recommended spacing between bait stations?
Yeah, well, as I indicated, one bait station per 50 gophers. So if of course, colonies can be very large. They're typically, yeah, they're going to be in the 1 acre or less range, but they can be 40 acres or larger. And you can get colonies all lined up next to each other, with sometimes some pretty fierce territorial battles. Sorry, I got off in the weeds. I don't remember the question.
Yeah, the question was, is there a recommended spacing between bait stations?
Oh yeah, but no, I think yeah, just determine on your population. So yeah, just space it as as 50 gophers are exposed. There can be some overlap with that as well.
next question. Are bait stations preferred over placing product in gopher holes to reduce impact on other species that may use those holes in the future?
Conditionally. Yeah, I think both, firing the bait down the holes and using bait stations have upsides and downsides. So of course, if you put it down the hole, gophers have a way of cleaning their holes. They will happily eject that bait. So you keep an eye on that. If you do discover ejected bait, that should be reintroduced to the hole or removed. So I mean, that can be a hazard that you wouldn't see with bait station, but in the case of a bait station, you could see non-targets actually entering the bait station and exposed to the toxins. So I think they're both good methods, but they both come with some risks that need to be assessed. So if you've got maybe a good strategy, maybe to set your bait station up with an oat bait or with an untreated bait, and just see if you've got horned larks showing up, or if you've got other non-targets going in there, that then you might want to consider firing it down the hole.
Thank you. How early is too early to start pre-baiting? And the question is, as soon as you see them emerge in the spring or earlier?
Yeah, again, I'd wait until the females are up, because those are the ones you want to target. So yeah, once again, if you're hitting really early, then you're probably going to skew that towards males, and probably not see the efficacy on a population wide basis that you might like. So yeah, wait until you see that population sort of stabilize, and obviously before the babies come up. And once that happens, it means keeping an eye on things almost every few days at least. But once you see that happen, then yeah, get those baits down, especially if the green up has begun.
Okay, thank you. This was an Alberta question. So for in Alberta, do you know what the disposal options are for old, like pre-2000 strychnine?
Yeah, that's tricky. Yeah, it's I think Clean Farms was taking care of all that. Last I heard, the Swan Hills facility is being decommissioned, and so the uh, pesticides by this group are actually being shipped to the United States for incineration. So I would contact Clean Farms and see, they do have a process in place to address disposal.
Okay,
There
thank
may be a
you.
charge associated with it though, so just so you're aware.
Can you use a trap crop to deter crop damage in a specific area? For example, can you seed something early to deter feeding on small research plots?
You're preaching to the choir here. I think maybe, but it hasn't been tested to date. So as part of that Richardson's Ground Squirrel Working Group, and Shannon sits on that as well, we've been coming up with some potential research ideas, and this is one of the ideas that the group came up with. So I think there's good potential in it, but it hasn't been tested to date. So that I'm aware. Yeah, pardon the weasel words, the short tail weasel words.
Um, the next one, is there a specific target calendar date that you would recommend for getting best control of reproductive females? For example, April 1st or May 1st, or kind of
Yeah,
which date?
I think, yeah, that early April timing, and once again, case by case, because there can be some variance in their emergence. If there is, a lot, if it's a very cold winter, despite the fact that they are really photoperiod dependent, that can delay emergence. Early warm conditions, that's going to speed emergence. They have the opportunity to take advantage of whatever resources are there, and that could stimulate them to emerge. So one thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit was torpor, and this relates to torpor. So over the course of the winter and even the course of the summer, they engage in this really deep sleep called torpor, where their body temperature takes on ambient temperatures. Can be near freezing in the winter. It's just the period of that varies. So with warm conditions, that can stimulate the breaking of torpor, but the underlying clock is dictated by day length. So yeah, just keep an eye on your sites is really the best advice I can offer.
Okay, thank you. How can we tell which gophers are females?
A really quick way is who's fighting. Yeah, I think without actually lifting them lifting them up and lifting their tails, it can be difficult. Yeah. Yeah, so no, look for fighting, and the early emergence, and just look for that sort of bloom of extra gophers. You will see an emergence about 2 weeks after you first start seeing them, so that's a pretty good indication. Or a good timing for that if you want to see look for the emergence of females. But yeah, actually, yeah, from a distance, yeah, it's not pink boots and blue boots, unfortunately.
Okay. Is it okay to keep a bait station out all spring, summer, and fall, and just refill it as needed?
Yeah, as long as if the bait is being taken, and it doesn't represent a risk to the to non-targets, then yeah, I don't see a problem with that at all. I mean, if you have an ongoing issue, but I think a good sign of the efficacy of that bait station will be, it will become a non-issue. So once feeding stops, then really you're obliged to remove that bait station according to the label directions. So
Okay, thank you. Last question I have is, does anhydrous ammonia application help control gophers?
can't recommend it. Unfortunately, it's not in the books anymore. It was for a time with a product called the Gofinator. And as I recall, I think it was 2016, the registration for the Gofinator lapsed. So the registrant, person who submitted the regulatory package, didn't follow up, so the manufacturer of the Gofinator didn't follow up with the registration. So the registration of anhydrous ammonia was tied to the Gofinator. Gofinator is not registered. You can't legally use anhydrous for it. So sounds like it worked well. Keep an eye out. I can't recommend you use it because it's not in the books.
Okay, there's another question that came in. Is there a typical number of holes that gopher colonies have?
A typical number of holes.
Yeah, that a gopher colony will have.
Oh yeah, it's from the work that we did in 2022 and 2023, we determined that it was about 25 active holes in a 40 by 40 meter area. So I've got a spreadsheet ramping that up to per acre. But yeah, just if you want to do that, yeah, I'd have to go digging through my files to find the spreadsheet. But just 25 for 40 by 40 40 by 40 meters. So 1,600 square meters, do the conversion of 1,600 square meters to acre. And there's lots of online converters that you can do that. Actually, let me take a really quick look. Maybe I can find the spreadsheet and just get you a hard number. I apologize, that's a no. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. That's the last question I've got. So thank you again, James, for all that great information. We really appreciate the time you took. Oh, sorry, there's more questions coming. I just got a
Oh,
note. So maybe I'll do a little bit of kind of a for this one. If you've missed out on the QR code but attended live, please contact us and we'll make sure you get credit. Uh, Credits are only available to those watching the entire webinar live. Please take the time to fill out the survey that will pop up when you exit from the program. As well, recording links will be sent out later this week in a follow-up email. Okay, will gophers from outside areas move into existing holes from gophers that have been eliminated?
absolutely. Yeah, they'll do so enthusiastically. Yeah, no, that is, and one of the things that I've actually seen on my place is I leave a population of gophers that I can mess with, and where predators can do what they want to do, and it gives me the opportunity to try different things. But close to the house, I put zinc phosphide down in the spring, got very good control, and about 2 weeks later, it was as if I had done nothing. The gophers from the surrounding areas had just moved right in and taken over those burrows, so they will absolutely take over unused burrows.
Okay. When does Richardson Ground Squirrel reach significance for producers?
Yeah, it's tricky. There is a not what's called a nominal economic threshold. So it hasn't been worked out for specific crops. It hasn't been worked out for specific environmental conditions or for different specific densities of Richardson's ground squirrel. But Yeah, I'm kind of reluctant to forward it because I don't know how meaningful it is. But what's been proposed is 20% reduction in crop over 100 meter area. So I think if you've gotten to a 20% yield hit, you probably should have pulled the trigger before then. So I'm not I don't know that that's really a very valuable threshold. Again, this is one of the things that's been proposed as part of our working group is actually hammer out usable thresholds. And there is a group at the University of Wyoming that is collecting decades worth of burrowing rodent data, including Richardson's ground squirrel, and they're doing a big synthesis on that. So we're looking forward to their results, and that'll really inform that discussion.
Okay. How and when is the best way to use Rosol?
Oh, and as mentioned, I mean, you can use I mean, you can use the bait station or firing it down the hole. The same rules apply. When the population is freshly emerged, those or the females are freshly emerged 2 weeks after initial emergence before green up. Yeah, all the same rules apply to that. Whether you're using a bait station or firing it down the hole.
Okay, do great horned
Oh,
owls? Sorry.
sorry,
Oh, no.
if I could mention as well, I think it's definitely worth mentioning. I had some or contact with some growers last year in the spring who were putting down zinc phosphide and weren't getting the efficacy that they would like. And so what they ended up doing was mixing zinc phosphide and Rosol. And my thinking is that they were getting the rapid activity of the zinc phosphide by taking advantage of the palatability. So the Rosol comes in a formulation that helps with palatability, helps the taste to gophers. So they could get that rapid knockdown from the zinc phosphide by increasing the palatability, and any mop up would be associated with the Rosol, because it's a multiple feeding, takes longer to kill. There's no rule in either label that says you cannot mix these products together. So it is perfectly legal and could be a really good strategy for growers. So sorry, there was another question.
Nope, that's good. Do great horned owls prey on gophers?
Yes, they do, and they also hunt in the daytime too. It depends how hungry they are, but yeah, they will happily munch on gophers or Richardson's ground squirrel, Richardson's Franklin 13 line. Um, yeah, weasels, they'll happily munch on weasels too. So
We got a few more here. What is the gestation period of Richardson Ground Squirrels? How many offspring in one season?
23 days, but you're not going to see them for 5 weeks after that. So 23 days gestation, 5 weeks lactation, and average litter size is 5 to 8.
Okay, if other gophers will move in after, how does this affect strategy for early treatment of gophers in an area?
Yeah, I can. Well, as you know, as I can attest to, it can dramatically affect. So once the stragglers moved in to my place, and it was very green, and they just weren't taking the bait, so I had to resort to shooting.
What is the best strategy if you bait your land but are surrounded, but the field surrounding your field, there's no control being done?
Yeah, that's problematic. Yeah, I think it's in those cases, I think it's good to talk to your neighbors and see if you can't get a more regional approach to control. Indicate it's a problem. And I realize that the kind of classic source of conflict can be acreage owners that come up right up on farmland or rangeland, who don't control their gophers, or hay producers who don't necessarily control their gophers as well as they could. But yeah, I think maybe just a conversation with your neighbors to help try to address that.
Okay. What is sylvatic plague, and will that control gopher populations? pestis?
Oh boy, yes. Sylvatic plague is the same. It's Yersinia pestis. So it's a bacterial infection. It's the same bacterium that caused the Black Death in Europe. So it is endemic in Saskatchewan. It is one of the big reasons that we have a rat control program, and I think for good reasons. But there was let me just maybe address, well, okay, in no particular order. So a PhD student recently finished at University of Saskatchewan, and according to the work that she did, including sampling a number of different populations, she did not find incidents of sylvatic plague in the Richardson's ground squirrel population, although it sounds like it was still detected. So what she was interested in were the fleas that live with Richardson's ground squirrel, and actually the gut microbiome of the fleas. So the bacterium actually lives in the gut of the fleas, and is transmitted that way. So there are a number of different flea species that will take advantage. Some specialize on Richardson's ground squirrel. Each of those is going to have different gut microflora that can include Yersinia pestis or sylvatic plague. But to date, it doesn't look like it's a big factor in the control of Richardson's ground squirrel. There are other diseases that are. So when we did some work in 2019 in the Maple Creek area and submitted all of our deaders to Dr. Trent Bollinger at the Western College of Veterinary Medicine for necropsy to determine the cause of death, determine if it's strychnine or otherwise. We were testing strychnine in different application methods. And we had a couple show up with that were killed by fungal infections. And I apologize, I don't remember the name of the specific fungus, but it was took root in their lungs, and it was a particularly moist spring, so wet conditions can contribute to fungal bacterial infections. It's definitely an area that needs more research, though.
Okay, thank you. I have, is trapping affected? And if so, do you have recommendations for traps?
Yeah, and I don't have firsthand experience with it, so I'm kind of relying on anecdotal accounts. And I know some people who get very good efficacy both with snap traps and with live traps. Of course, with live traps, where they go, uh, you know, I guess you could ship them to Japan. They're popular pets there now, apparently. Um, just give them a plane ticket, off they go. Yeah, so both live traps and snap traps can be effective for local control, and you definitely know if they've worked. There is a guillotine trap. I have one neighbor who relies almost exclusively on guillotine traps, and he quite likes the results. But of course, you could present risks to other critters that are trying to get in that hole as well. That could be affecting control, so keep an eye out for those.
Okay, just waiting just a sec to see if there's any questions. I have someone typing, so I'm just waiting to make sure
Oh,
I'm
sure.
not missing their question. So,
Do you want
but
me to
yeah,
try?
yeah,
I'll try to anticipate the question. Yeah.
I've seen some fairly pudgy gophers that are
Oh,
that are
yeah.
pets.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I
Are
almost
you
feel
aware?
I almost feel badly for them. Like you see them, in a high-rise apartment in Tokyo. It's like this animal wants to dig, and it just, the problems it must be causing in there and the stress.
Are you aware of anyone working on other control methods such as biological targeting for reproduction?
There has been, yeah, well, both. There has been some work done on a protozoan that is actually it's a badger parasite that happens to be really hard on gophers. And there was some work done on that about 10 years ago. Yeah, unfortunately, getting a biological control agent approved for release depends almost entirely on being extremely specific. So normally, I mean, the normal process for a biological control agent is to go to its usually you're dealing with an invasive species. You go to where that critter came from, you look for a natural enemy, and then it spends literally 10 years being evaluated for specificity and for for any other potential issues before it's ever released in Canada. So it'd be a long haul even with one, and the work to date on potential biological control agents, they're all just too generous to get approval to my mind. Now, so what the question was, biological and
Yeah, it was biological and targeting reproduction.
targeting reproduction. Yeah, there are actually rat control products registered in the United States. One is actually doesn't even need a pest control product number because it's relatively common, and again, the dose makes the poison, but it results in sterilization of female rats. So yeah, planned rathood, I suppose. I've been speaking with Steve Van Tassel, who is the state vertebrate control specialist in Montana, and he and I will have multiple conversations over the course of a year, and he is enthusiastic about trying this for Richardson's ground squirrel, but to date the company has been reluctant to provide him with a formulation that might work. Pardon me, for Richardson's ground squirrel. So not a knock against against anybody involved, but yeah, to date that testing hasn't been done. But there's a possibility, and again, that's another one of the things that was raised by our working group. So there a lot of potential research topics. And to that, we currently have now a couple of researchers who are interested in maybe taking a look at some of these ideas as well, and have some unique ideas of their own.
Okay, last question is, have you ever seen mange in a gopher population?
Never in a gopher population. No, I've certainly seen it in predator populations. But yeah, I haven't seen it. So yeah, take my limited experience as not necessarily gospel on that one. Yeah, you see critters affected by mange, and it's a thing.